Heliod combo is back in Modern, and it's all thanks to Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Being a card that lets us take creatures' activated abilities from the graveyard and give it to creatures we control with +1/+1 counters on them, we can do some pretty broken things in this Heliod deck. There are two main combos in this deck, and they both revolve around Heliod. Whenever we gain life, we can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature we control, and we can pay 2 mana to give a creature we control lifelink. With Walking Ballista, if we give it lifelink with the Heliod, then we can infinitely damage the opponent with 1 damage, as the Heliod will replenish the counter we remove. With Spike Feeder, we can infinitely gain life as we can keep removing the counter to gain 2, as Heliod will also replenish that counter as well. The reason why Cauldron is so good in this deck is it lets us copy one of these two creatures in the graveyard if the opponent had a removal spell. Now we can convert one of our creatures on the board into either Ballista or Spike Feeder to win the game. Before we get into the gameplay though, this video is sponsored by Deckimono. The Deckimono is an upcoming deck box that fits 100 double sleeve cards plus tokens for Magic the Gathering, Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! And other TCGs. It allows you to showcase your commander or key cards in the front of your deck box in a top loader for extra protection. Each deck box comes with a detachable lid with 16 magnets to make sure it stays intact. There are many designs to choose from, and you can upgrade your Deckimono to have a stronger interior build for whatever suits your needs. If you're like me and want to go for a meme deck box instead, then be like me and keep your deck protected in the deck fast. Also, you need to feel these dice, they really have a lot of weight to them. Deckimono offers so many different unique deck boxes on their Kickstarter page, which you should check out with my referral link down below. Not only that, but you can get rewards for supporting them early, and check out all the designs that they offer on their Kickstarter page. Thank you so much for Deckimono for sponsoring this video, and now let's get into some gameplay. I want to start things off by showing you a clip from my Twitch livestream where the Cauldron really popped off. I win game 1 in this match quite easily with just the simple combo of Spike Feeder, Heliod as well as Conclave Mentor. Just Spike Feeder and Heliod is infinite life on its own, but the Conclave Mentor allows us to get an additional counter for every activation, meaning all of my creatures have infinite power and infinite toughness. Now you have the joy of me clicking so many times, as on Magic Online you cannot demonstrate an infinite loop, you just have to go through the motions and do it. After making my creatures really massive and attacking for a few turns, my opponent realizes they can't beat infinite life, and we move on to the second game, where I want to show you the power of the Cauldron. Now, our opening hand is Force of Vigor, Cauldron, and Haywire Might. Haywire Might and Force of Vigor are so good against our opponent because they play so many lands like Urza's Saga, as well as just artifact lands. So with the opponent starting with an Urza's Saga and a Haywire Might, it's a very clear decision to Force of Vigor, because not only do we get to Stone Rain them, but this Haywire Might can exile our Cauldron, which would be a problem. Now for our turn, we follow up with our own Haywire Might and ship it back. The opponent proceeds to follow up with an artifact land, which we're obviously going to exile. And this is where I realized the true power of the Cauldron. You know what's funny? All of my creatures are Haywire Mights. All of my creatures are now Haywire Mights. They are dead. All of my creatures are Haywire Mights. Bro, this guy is so dead. Sometimes you can only just laugh at Magic the Gathering. Let's go, dude. Get your lands out of here. Literally all of my creatures are Haywire Mights. Not only are all of my creatures Haywire Mights now, it's easy to see why I win this game, because I have both Heliod and Spike Feeder to gain infinite life on top of this broken strategy. Implementing some Twitch clips into my YouTube channel is something I've been testing out for the past few videos. Please let me know in the comment section down below if you're enjoying the Twitch clips, or I should just stick to some offline gameplay. Some criticism I get here on the channel is that I don't play against enough tier 1 decks, so the first full match we're going to showcase is against a tier 1 deck in Modern. To start things off though, we've got a great opening hand with 2 Walking Ballistas, so we're going to bottom an extra one. With the opponent starting off with a Blood Crypt and a Ragavan, it's clear they're on red-black scam. Now with a land off the top though, we don't really have any decision but to play our land and pass back and hope that we can land this Auriok Champion next turn without them playing a discard spell. Things look pretty good for us though when they hit a Spike Feeder from the Ragavan hit and just play a Dauthi Voidwalker and pass back the turn, so it's a very clear play Auriok Champion as a good blocker and pass back. This Dauthi Voidwalker will be a problem though because it has Shadow, meaning that I can't block it. And things get slightly worse for us because the opponent plays another Dauthi Voidwalker, which I also can't block. So now my opponent has 6 power on the board that I can't block every turn, and I'm on 13 life. meaning here I'm almost on a turn 2 clock. Auriok Champion is doing some help by gaining us a few life points every time a creature enters the battlefield, but it's definitely a rough spot here. Playing Ranger Captain of Eos, I can get my other Walking Ballista from the deck, and this is because for 4 mana I can play Walking Ballista for X's 2 and kill a Delphi Voidwalker. So my way to survive here is on the next 2 turns I'm going to play 4 mana Walking Ballistas to kill both of the Delphis. This can easily not work though because the opponent's deck is full of Lightning Bolts and more creatures that they could potentially attack with. So with the land off the top, we have to stick to our plan by killing one of the Delphi Voidwalkers with the Ballista, and they just follow up with the Fable of the Mirror Breaker to put us in a good spot here. Now what's quite disappointing is we're going to have to sacrifice our other Walking Ballista into the Exile Zone to kill this Delphi Voidwalker, as it just is a must-answer creature on the board. Now these Walking Ballistas in the Exile Zone cannot be brought back. You may think that if I use Cauldron to exile my opponent's Delphi Voidwalker in the graveyard, I can then turn one of my creatures into a Delphi Voidwalker, activate it, and take back my Walking Ballista, but this actually does not work because of the wording of Delphi Voidwalker, saying you may only take a card in your opponent's Exile Zone with a Void counter on it. After my opponent uses the Fable trigger, they make a really interesting play. They attack him with both of their creatures, so I eat the Ragavan. Then they pay 4 mana to cast Grief, which is a good card, but then they don't take my Cauldron, they take my Spike Feeder. And now with an Auriok Champion off the top of the deck, we have almost locked a win, and that's because we can play Auriok Champion, play our Cauldron, and exile Spike Feeder from our graveyard, meaning that we can now keep removing counters from our creatures to gain more life, making it so difficult for our opponent to even attack through these 2 creatures with protection from red and protection from black. After some back and forth with the opponent, the Cauldron and the Auriok Champions were just too strong. Incidentally gaining a load of life, being great blockers, and just becoming big creatures, it was too much for the opponent to overcome, and they eventually conceded the game. Going into boarding, Haywire Might isn't good, Delighted Halfling isn't the best, and we're going to board in 3 Veil of Summers because we know the opponent has a ton of removal spells. I also then decide to last minute bring in some Path to Exiles for the other 2 Delighted Halflings because Fury is a problem as well as a fast Grief. Going into game 2, the opponent starts off with a Thoughtseize, which has to take my Auriok Champion, but we really don't mind because we have so many premium cards in our hand. I should also take note, the opponent mulliganed to 5 this game, and they just pass on turn 2 with 2 mana, so we're way far ahead of the opponent here. And we keep that lead with the 4th mana source off the top of the deck, so now we can play a premium Ranger Captain of Eos into either a Collected Company or the One Ring depending on what the opponent does. With the opponent getting 4 mana and casting a Grief, I was expecting them to take the One Ring, but they actually took my Collected Company. I was expecting them to have an Orcish Bowmaster in hand, because that's why they would let my One Ring resolve. Despite this, we're still going to get the One Ring on the table, because we want to draw a lot of cards and draw towards our combo, which we do find. Things do get interesting though when the opponent untaps and plays a Shieldred. Now whenever we draw a card we lose 2 life, meaning this One Ring isn't too valuable to us. But next turn we're going to have access to 6 mana on the board because of this Boseiju and Forest in our hand. So if we can play this Heliod, pass back the turn holding up Veil of Summer so that we can't die, then we should be able to kill the opponent either with infinite life from the Spike Feeder or infinite damage from the Walking Ballista. So after they attack in with both of their creatures, I chump block with the Captain and they play a Grief. I'm going to Veil of Summer here so they can't take my Walking Ballista so we can still kill them next turn, and they're tapped out so they won't be having a removal spell. We do lose some life from the Shieldred, find a Walking Ballista, but now as they pass back the turn, we can play our Walking Ballista for X equals 2, give it lifelink with the Heliod, and kill the opponent. Overall, I really like this deck, going 11-4 on both of my Twitch stream and offline, playing 3 tournaments. I got 2 4-1s and a 3-2. I really like Cauldron in this deck, but I definitely think there's some tweaks that need to be made. For example, my Collected Company whiffed a lot. I had multiple times on stream where my Collected Company would just hit 1 card, sometimes even 0, in spots where it was very important that it did something. Overall though, I think this deck has legs, and we're going to be seeing more Heliod combo in the modern format to come. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.